My name is Casey Wells. I'm 32 years old, and this is how I took revenge on the people who made me feel like a failure. For most of my life, the story opens with a sharp roar overhead as a black helicopter descends onto the private lawn of her high school reunion venue. Attendees freeze, shielding their eyes from the wind. The doors open, and out steps Casey, in a tailored designer suit, sharp heels, aviator sunglasses glinting beneath the sun. Heads turn. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Is that Casey Wells? The same girl they used to mock for eating lunch alone, for wearing thrifted jeans, for being too quiet and too weird. She doesn't flinch. She walks calmly, powerfully, like she owns the moment. Cut to 1 week earlier. Casey sits at her glass-top desk in her downtown office when she opens a glittery pink envelope marked * class of 2010 reunion. Nitrogen monoxide losers. Only legends. Her eyes narrow. She remembers the handwriting. Someone from the old days actually thought that was funny. It wasn't. That night, she looks into the mirror, sees the girl they never truly saw, and decides, this time, she won't just show up. She'll show them what a real legend looks like. Casey grew up in a small, gray-collar town in Ohio. The kind of place where everyone knew each other's business and no one let you forget who you were. In high school, she was quiet, painfully shy, with a stutter that clung to her sentences until she was 14. Her teeth were crooked until her parents could finally afford braces when she was nearly 17. Most of her clothes were hand-me-downs or thrift store finds, and though her parents loved her, they worked long hours just to make ends meet. There were no prom photos, no group hangouts, no secret crushes who ever liked her back, except for one, Gavin Palmer, the golden boy, star quarterback, and the first boy she ever dreamed about, until the day he pretended to ask her out as a joke and had the whole cafeteria laughing at her. When she said yes, leading the charge, of course, was Lena Wilcox, the perfectly polished cheerleader who never missed a chance to humiliate Casey. Back then, Casey felt invisible, except for the moments they made her wish she was. Now, at 32, Casey lives in Los Angeles, in a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city she rebuilt herself in. She's a tech entrepreneur, a quiet, self-made powerhouse. Having just sold her second startup for 8 figures, she drives a Tesla, shops in silence, and speaks on panels where young women in tech call her a trailblazer. But despite all the success, the scars never fully faded. She still hears laughter when she trips, still hears Gavin's fake sweetness, still wonders if she's really escaped that version of herself, or just buried her under code and contracts. When the reunion invite landed on her desk, she nearly threw it out. But then she scrolled through the class Facebook page out of morbid curiosity and saw it. A comment under an old yearbook photo. * wonder if Crash Casey will show up this time. * the nickname. From the time she tripped walking up the bleachers at senior awards night, spilling her papers everywhere while the entire gym snickered. The fact that they still remembered and still mocked her. After all this time, it didn't hurt in the same way. It burned. And in that moment, Casey didn't just decide to attend the reunion. She decided it was time to reclaim every version of herself they tried to bury. Casey sat on her balcony, city lights blinking like applause below her, scrolling through the high school reunion event page with growing disbelief. Lena was now a self-proclaimed lifestyle coach with a pastel Instagram grid, full of green smoothies and toxic positivity. Gavin was divorced, selling real estate, and posting gym selfies like he was still captain of something. the group. Chat screenshots and comment threads were enough to make her stomach turn. There was a post pinned to the top of the reunion page, written by Lena herself. This year, we're celebrating success. The kind you feel, wear, and walk into a room with. If you peaked in high school, you're welcome. If not, maybe next time. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't clever. It was a gate slammed shut in the face of anyone who dared to grow up different from the clique. Who ruled the cafeteria 10 years ago? Casey could feel her stomach coil. Not in fear, in rage. Because she remembered. She remembered the afternoon in 10th grade when she got into the regional science fair. A massive win for her, something that made her feel, for once, seen. She came to school beaming. That feeling lasted less than a day. She walked to her locker and found Nerd Princess scrawled in red Sharpie across the metal, with little crown doodles around it. People passed by, laughing. Some took photos. Gavin walked by, smirked, and said, "Your Royal High Nerdness." Lena filmed it, uploaded it, tagged it Locker Royalty. Nobody stood up for her. Not a teacher, not a friend, not even the girl she once helped cheat in algebra, and now the same people were hosting a reunion filled with forced smiles and subtle cruelty, wrapped in glitter and champagne, not to celebrate connection, but to police who was worth showing up. It wasn't just insulting. It was familiar. It was the same playbook they used in high school. And for a moment, Casey felt that version of herself again. The quiet one. The one who ate lunch in the library. The one who tried not to take up space. But then she looked around. She wasn't in a school hallway anymore. She was in her own home. One she bought. One she built. With money and skill and vision they couldn't even begin to understand. And just like that, she decided. This wasn't about showing off her success. It wasn't about impressing them. It was about rewriting the script they wrote for her. Not revenge. Exactly. Something deeper. It was about taking back every piece of herself they tried to erase, and walking in with all of it, chin high, heels higher. Casey stood in front of the mirror, watching the stylist adjust the lapel of her tailored suit. A dark velvet masterpiece that shimmered like storm clouds under light. Power with polish, the stylist had said. But the transformation wasn't just in the fabric. It was in the way Casey held her shoulders, in the steady breath she took before saying, "Let's do the heels next." The helicopter was already booked. A sleek black chopper that would land right outside the vineyard, where the reunion was being held. Dramatic, yes, but purposeful. She wasn't arriving like the old Casey. She was landing like a woman they couldn't ignore. She'd even booked the penthouse suite at the only upscale hotel in town. Not because she needed the view, but because the receptionist had recognized her name and paused. Then stammered, "Wait." From North Wind High, Casey had smiled. Not anymore. But beneath all the external polish, the internal work had just begun. Casey opened her journal each night, writing not about revenge, but about fear. Fear that when she walked into that room, the old shame would rush back like it had never left. That their stares, their whisper laughs, their raised brows would still cut through her no matter how high her heels, or how shiny her entrance. So she booked a session with her old therapist, Dr. Lin, who had walked her through the worst of it. The post-high school anxiety, the insomnia, the public panic attacks. Dr. Lin asked gently, "Is this about proving something to them? Or proving something to yourself?" And Casey didn't have a clean answer. Alina, her best friend since LA, gave it to her straight over margaritas. "Look, you're not that scared girl anymore. They don't get to define the temperature of the room you walk into. You do. This isn't about revenge. This is about reclaiming your narrative. And finally closing the chapter. Casey wanted to believe that, but the pit in her stomach lingered. Then came the DM. From Lena. Heard you might show. Brave of you. Hope you're not still. Weird. No punctuation. No context. Just pure, condescending venom dressed up in millennial passive aggression. Casey stared at the message for a full minute. She didn't reply. Didn't block her. Just left it there. A digital echo of the girl who used to whisper insults from the next locker over. But now it was different. Now Casey had money, power, confidence. She had rebuilt her stutter into a keynote speech. She had transformed awkwardness into originality and shame into strategy. Still, part of her trembled. Because what if they were still inside her? What if the moment she saw Gavin's smirk, Lena's fake laugh, Amber's judging eyes, she'd be 16 again, shrinking, folding, trying to disappear. She sat in her suite that night, sipping tea, staring at her reflection. For all the sparkle and confidence and curated entrance, she had to face it. This wasn't just a reunion. This was a battlefield. And she wasn't just showing up, she was going to win. The helicopter blades cut through the evening air like a drum roll announcing war. Conversations halted. Heads turned skyward. Some squinted, shielding their eyes against the dusk light as the sleek black chopper descended onto the far end of the high school football field. Beneath the massive white reunion tent, laughter died. Mid-sentence, wine glasses froze halfway to lips. Music faded into background buzz. Then the door opened. Casey stepped out, calm and composed. Her designer heels hitting the turf like a judge's gavel. Aviators hid her eyes, but not the confidence in her walk. Her custom suit shimmered in the floodlights, her hair slicked into a low, sleek twist. She didn't scan the crowd. She walked through it, like she already knew every eye was on her inside. The tent, conversations restarted in hushed disbelief. Is that Casey Wells? She looks different. She made her way through the crowd, greeting people by name. Not out of kindness, but power. The kind of power that comes from knowing exactly who dismissed you and making sure they know you didn't forget. Josh from English class tried a weak smile. Casey, you look incredible. Thanks, she said, eyes kind but cool. Congrats on the third marriage. He blinked. How did you? She was already walking past. Then came Gavin. Still handsome, but heavier around the edges. The weight of time and mediocrity. See, Casey, you look. Wow. She tilted her head. You used to say I looked like a ghost. He laughed nervously. Teenagers, right? Casey just raised her glass. Cheers to growth. Lena approached last, martini in hand, skin a little too tight, laughter a little too loud. Well, look who finally learned how to walk in heels, she chirped, voice sweet but soaked in old venom. Casey didn't miss a beat. And you still can't read a room. The group laughed, not at Casey, but with her, and Lena's smile tightened like a rope as the night wore on. Drinks flowed, and the crowd loosened. Stories were shared, fake compliments exchanged. But Lena wasn't done, and she found Casey near the catering table, alone for a moment, gazing out at the field where she'd once been shoved during gym class. Hey, Lena said, a little too soft now. Can we talk? Casey turned slowly. Sure. Lena looked around, then leaned in. Look, I know we weren't exactly besties, but people change. I've been following your company. Threadspin is killing it. Casey said nothing. Lena pushed on. Honestly, I'm struggling. My content's plateaued, engagement's down. I was wondering if you'd want to collab. Or maybe feature me in something. The silence that followed was thick. Casey looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who once laughed as she cried in the locker room, who sent cruel DMs from fake accounts, who told the school Casey would never be anyone. Casey gave a small, almost pitying smile. You once said people like me don't belong. Lena's smile wavered. Casey stepped closer. You were right. I don't belong here. Not anymore. Then she turned and walked away. Past the alumni still stuck in old dynamics. Past the DJ. Past the football scoreboard that once displayed her humiliation. If you whispered, "Where's she goin'?" she didn't answer. But the people who mattered, the kind ones, the underdogs, the quiet supporters who always believed in more, they followed her toward a line of black cars waiting to take them to the penthouse after party she'd planned. Real music, real conversation, real connection. The reunion. That was just her opening act. The next morning, Casey stood barefoot on the balcony of her penthouse suite, a mug of coffee warming her hands as the sun began to rise over the small town skyline. The golden light kissed the tops of familiar trees, rooftops, and the very school she once felt trapped